Hey, welcome back to another episode of Maintenance with Mike. So today, another gorgeous day in British Columbia. Nice sunny weather. Looks like we're getting ready for spring, buddy. Yeah, so the subject of today's video is if you have an ATV or quad that is overheating or running hot, I may have a solution for you. I'm experiencing the same thing through the winter. It's been sort of plaguing me the whole time. And what I think it is the radiator cap is getting old and it's weak, and the spring in there is not allowing the system to build pressure. Before it builds pressure, it's pushing the antifreeze out into the overflow reservoir and causing the machine to overheat. So we've removed the thermostat completely from the system, eliminating the possibility of it sticking closed, which would cause the machine to overheat as well. We're going to do a quick flush of the whole system. We're going to inspect the radiator and that, make sure there's no issues there, and then we're going to replace the thermostat or the radiator cap and see if that fixes the problem. If it doesn't, we're going to continue to progress forward and try other things, and we appreciate you being here, and let's get started. You can see that we stripped all the plastics off now. Now, I didn't really show this because there's no need. Each quad has different fastening points and stuff. So this is not specific to this quad. This is just a general sort of what to look for. So what we've done is we've ordered a new radiator cap and a new thermostat. The thermostat goes underneath this housing here. So as I had mentioned earlier, this thermostat's been removed. So instead of just the water circulating through the engine until the thermostat gets hot enough and opens and then allows the flow through the rad and back, as soon as we start the vehicle, the fluid is going to be circulating through the motor and the rad right away with the thermostat removed. So we've eliminated the thermostat sticking closed by taking it out of the system. We know that with the thermostat out and the rad cap on, that the unit still overheats and pushes fluid into the overflow tank and then overflows the overflow tank, if that makes sense. So let's take these hoses off here and flush out the rad. Another common contributor to overflowing or overheating quads is the radiator. A lot of radiators get plugged with mud and it doesn't allow for enough heat dissipation, so that causes problems as well. But this quad is a property princess. It gets attached to a wagon and it tows stuff around and it plows snow. It's not a mudder, it's not, right? So I shone a light behind the radiator here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll turn it on again. And I'll bring the camera down and I'll show you. So you should be able to see that as well. You can see how clear those fins are. There's absolutely nothing in there right now. It's crystal clear. Those fins are beautiful. No clogging going there. So we've eliminated that as well. So here's the overflow tank. You'll see this rad hose. This hose right here is the return from the radiator, and it comes in and hits the water pump, and the water pump pushes the fluid up through the cylinder jacket of the engine, and then it comes back through the radiator. So this is what's overflowing. This has an overflow hose that drains, so pushing the fluid from the hole right by the rad into this overflow tank, which is what it's designed to do. If it does get too hot, it's supposed to push it into here for expansion. But what's happening, I think, is that cap is failing early before it reaches temperature, pushing all the fluid into here, filling this right up and overflowing it before before the cap holds that pressure. So there is also a fan in this machine behind the radiator, which spins freely. And there is also, in this welded point here on the radiator, that is your temperature sensor for your dash. That basically tells you when it's getting too hot. So one of the reasons or symptoms of the radiator cap failing early is this fan doesn't turn on. So when the unit starts to overheat and starts to push all the fluid out the reservoir tank, this fan isn't running. This fan does work, but what happens is once it blows all the fluid into the overflow tank, there's no fluid coming through this section of the rad anymore, and this sensor is not picking up any hot fluid. That's the reason why it's not turning on. So everything's sort of pointing to this cap being the culprit. I have ordered a new thermostat and a new rad cap. I figured if the rad cap failed, the spring in there has failed, you know, maybe the thermostat's getting weak as well. So let's just change both of those. So for what we're going to do right now until we get those parts is we're going to flush everything. I'm going to disconnect. This is where the thermostat goes, right in here. So there's two hoses right here. These are from your water jacket from the head. It's a twin, right? So these are the two hoses here, the coming in and then the return. And then when this thermostat opens, it pushes it through the radiator to cool the fluid. So we are going to disconnect these hoses here, maybe at the radiator and at that side there. We're going to get a hose. We're going to flush this out. Then we're going to drive the quad up onto some ramps, because when you elevate the front of the quad, when you elevate the front of the quad up in the air pockets or air bubbles want to go forward, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to drive the quad up onto a ramp. We're going to leave the rad cap off. We're going to run it at idle, and you'll see a bunch of air bubbles in the throat of that radiator cap. And also I'll show you how much swirling motion that we're seeing in the throat of the radiator cap, which indicates that the water pump is actually circulating the antifreeze. We don't know how well it's circulating the antifreeze, but from what I see there, it's circulating. So I would assume the pump is good at this point. It's just a crankshaft pump, so it's mechanically driven off the motor. So unless the fins have totally burnt themselves off somehow or something, that's the only reason why that would fail. And when I took the thermostat out of this this housing here to have a look at it, all indications were that the system was clean. Like it was absolutely spotless in there still. I had changed the radiator fluid 2 or 3 times within the life of this machine already, so it's been well taken care of. So anyway, let's pull some hoses off, do some flushing, fill it up with antifreeze, and I'll show you the swirling to show that the water pump's working, and we'll watch for some bubbles. And then what we're going to do is we're going to top it up and put this old cap back on for now. We're going to push it back in the garage, and we're going to wait for the parts, and as soon as the parts show up, we'll finish off the fix. So fingers crossed. So I'm hoping you can see this on the screen here. This shows the circulation of how the so the return from the fan comes out the bottom and goes to the water pump and then gets blown back through the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the lower one. We're going to disconnect the upper rad hose. We're going to attach a hose to there, and we're going to flush that rad. And then we're probably just going to take this hose and stick a leaf blower or something on this hose and blow the rest of the water out of the system. So this is the bottom rad hose we're taking off here now. Ooh, that hose is pretty hot on there. I don't want to rip this though, cause any leaks. There we go. So we'll just let that drain into the bucket here. Now you always want to clean this. You always want to clean this up if you spill any, because it's not good for animals, right? So be very careful with that. We're going to take the top rad hose off here. There we go. Okay, so that's loose. I'm just going to lightly, with our channel locks, turn this. So hopefully we can get it to start to move. I don't want to wreck these hoses. There we go. Well, that looks pretty clear. So we're going to put water now in the top of the rad on this side here. And you're going to see it come out there. And the idea here is just to rinse this rad out. It's a little gray, but nothing major. See if we can get it to fill up. So that's pretty clear. I can see down in there, and it is beautifully clean. I definitely don't think that's the problem. Okay, so let's consult our diagram again once more and see what we want to do here. So the bottom hose on the rad here is the one that goes through the water pump and circulates and everything. So we're going to stick the hose inside here and blow water through the water jacket and all that stuff, and it should come out this top hose here on this side, and that'll basically flush it. And then what we're going to try to do is put a little bit of air on there and just get all the water out, so that when we fill it with antifreeze, it's not mixing with regular tap water. It's mixing with, let's call it distilled water and antifreeze. So let's do this now. There we go. So that's flushing through the whole water jacket of the engine. Everywhere is getting flushed now. Okay, now we'll put a little bit of air to that. We'll put the hose away. So I've got my little Milwaukee M18, which you can actually, you can lock it on. So we're going to sort of try to make a seal around here as best we can and blow any water out of here. So we're thinking that should do it. We'll put some on here and see what happens, just to try to get more air out. Oh, there we go. There's more water. So let's do the red. Okay, let's put these caps back on, these hoses. And then we can recharge the system using the old cap still until we get that part. That's fine. we don't want to go too crazy here. This is, no, it's actually metal. Thought it might be a plastic rad, but it's actually metal. So that's good. Old school. Put this one on. Tighten up this clamp. Okay, so let's put the quad out up on the ramps now. I'll show you how to do that. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to start it here and drive it up because I'm not pushing it. So this is the rider's left now, or operator's left. I've removed the screws that hold this overflow reservoir. There's a line that goes to the front so that when it gets too hot, the overflow pushes the fluid into here, and then this line here exits the machine. So when it gets so hot that it comes right up to the top here, this is actually leaving the machine now because it's overheating. So it'll push all the fluid out, which I think is the problem because the rad cap isn't holding pressure. So anyway, we will top this up once we get the new rad cap in that, because I want it to build pressure and see what we've got in the tank here, and then top this up to like mid-range between full and low, just for a little expansion. So we'll leave this loose for now. We're going to pull the machine back a bit, and then we're going to put it on the ramps. So just in case we have a bit of overflow here, we want to make sure that we've got this thing off the driveway. Hopefully these won't slide in the snow. So we're gonna have to quickly start it and drive it up. So there we have it. We've got the front elevated a bit, which will, well, when we're running it here, I'll show you what happens. You'll see all the air bubbles start to come out. So we've got here a concentrate. So this is an antifreeze concentrate, and this is the yellow, which is pretty much good for all vehicles, so quads, everything. Works fine with aluminum and all that stuff. I think the pink stuff is more for Toyota, you know, Acura, stuff like that, but the yellow is pretty much good. This is what I've been using on these machines forever, so it's good. So it's a concentrate, so it has to be mixed, where does it say? Concentrate. Pretty sure it says here 50-50 somewhere. I'm blind. 50-50 is good to minus 37, so we'll make it a little bit. We're not going to hit the minus 37 here, I hope. So you mix it with distilled water, just so that there's no hard iron and stuff. And I like to mix it in the old like windshield washer fluid in a clean container, because then you can see. So let's fill this up with 50%. Let's call it a hot 50% antifreeze. And that's going to give us, you know, maybe a little bit better lubrication, but not really required. So I'm going to mix up 4 liters. So we'll use basically half this jug, right? It's kind of the idea here. We're going to have to make that hole a bit bigger. We're going to be spilling here. You can see that. Always want to wash your hands once you're done using this stuff, right? It's like a glycol based nastiness. And we're doing this today and it's trying to snow again. Does that look like half-ish? Let's do, this thing doesn't take much. It only takes like 2.5 liters, so let's take a measurement of that and mark it. Just because there's no real reason to get crazy with how much we've got in there. So we've got 4 inches in here now. So 8 would take us to here, so we'll go a little bit below 8 with water. And that'll give us a, we'll call it a hot 50-50. So we'll open the distilled water now. And we'll fill that up. Ooh, that's very full. To that line. Let's call it there. So we'll put our knuckles on there so we don't spill it. So there's our 50-50 mix from a concentrate. Let's put this distilled water away. And the antifreeze away. And our tape measure. See if we can show you that swirling action of the throat here. We'll just, I mean, I'm sure it's diluted already, but it will once it hits the machine. But let's fill this up now without trying to make a big mess. I wonder if the 2-liter measurement that I saw was if you don't drain the rad, maybe. Oh, that looking, I think we're there. No, that's about 2 liters. There, we're full. Okay, so we've got her all filled with water. We have it up on an angle. You can see just a, well, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see there's just a little bit of fluid just at the top of that neck. So what we're going to do is we're going to start that up now. We're going to tap on all the hoses. We're going to squeeze on all the hoses. We're going to tap on them. You're going to start to see bubbles and stuff coming up here. It's going to take a bit to warm this up though. So you can see that already that's there's definitely lots of water flow. Let me see if I can zoom in on that for you. So that movement or cyclone sort of thing is, that's the pump, right? The water pump. See how you can get her going? So I think the water pump's fine. Just want to keep her idling here until it warms up a bit. Get some more bubbles out of there. These are for to keep rodents out of the airbox in case I leave it outside. Like I said, it's pretty much a property princess, but most of the time it's in a sea can. Let the ribs come down a bit now. Now we'll start to tap on all the hoses. You'll see some bubbles coming up once in a while. Hopefully that won't overfill. It looks like it might overflow. That's okay. You'd think it would go into the overflow. I guess not. So let's keep tapping on all the hoses. Oh, just a bit of an airlock there, that's all it was. See that movement? That's the water pump. Doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. I don't think there's anything wrong with the water pump. So let's just keep tapping on all the hoses, squeezing hoses here and there, try to get all the air out, eh? Is the idea. That's why we elevated it. So you still see some bubbles coming once in a while. We want to keep this running until the bubbles stop, basically. And then we'll shut it off and put the cap on and wait for the new cap and the new thermostat. So I haven't seen any bubbles for quite a while now, just a few tiny little ones. And it's definitely getting warmer. The overflow is actually, let me show you that. So the overflow is about here right now. So it's halfway between low and full. Hard to see, it's about there. So that's kind of where we want it anyway. Okay, I think that's going to do it. We're going to shut it off here. And then we're going to just top that up to the bottom of this neck piece here. And then we're going to put the cap on. Just top that up with just a little bit. Definitely pushed some antifreeze into the overflow tank, so that's why we're seeing some in there now. Oh, that's probably a bit much, but then we'll put this cap on. There. And that's it now until we get the new rad cap and thermostat. Okay, so as you can hear, we've got it fired up again. We've got the new rad cap, Kawasaki. I did get the new thermostat as well, but I haven't installed the new thermostat yet. I'm just going to try to see if the rad cap fixes the problem. It's fine to run it wide open with no thermostat. We just want to make sure that it doesn't build up. Well, we want to make sure that the rad cap's going to hold and not push the fluid to the reservoir. If it still pushes the fluid to the reservoir with the rad cap being new, I don't know, maybe water pump? I don't know, we may have to revisit that if that's the case. So let's let it keep running here now and warm up. There's no gauge, so we'll just have to let it warm up. You can see on this side here, see the reservoir tank is about to here. So it's kind of in between full and low, so that's fine. We want to make sure that the fan on the back of the motor cycles as well if we keep all the fluids in the machine here. So we'll let it run for a bit and warm up, and we'll check back with you. So I just had to shut it off. Got some bad news. Hear that noise? That gurgling. So the new thermostat has opened up again. and has filled. This reservoir cap is absolutely full now. So it's pushed all the fluid into the reservoir. I got it shut off in time that it didn't leak any fluid out of the machine. We have to keep digging into this and figure out why it's letting it get so hot that it pushes the fluid into the reservoir before this circulation fan turns on. I know the fan works. I've definitely heard it turn on and off. I could hook up 12 volts to it to make sure, but I definitely have heard the fan work. I just don't know what to do next. So, hey, welcome back. So it's the next day here now. Had some time to think about how this whole quad system operates. So one thing that I may have missed is that I hadn't heard the fan turn on for quite some time, and the last time I heard the fan turn on was when it had pushed a bunch of fluid out of the radiator into the overflow. And at that point, it may have gotten hot from steam or something. I'm not too sure. And I thought I heard the fan come on, but so I've done some investigation on this, and this is the fan switch. So it goes into the radiator and it senses how hot the coolant is getting in here, and it sends a signal to a relay and it turns the fan on. You can hear the fans running now. It's actually moving. I've taken the two wires off of here, and I've jumpered them out with a wire, and that's why the fan is running. So that tells us that the relay and all that stuff on the system is working. So what I wanted to do is I put a meter on these two leads to check for continuity, i.e. when this got hot enough, would this switch close and have some resistance. I had to have the quad's been running for well over, I bet you we're getting close to 2 hours now. I've been in low gear, driving up and down the driveway, all the way around the property, revving it up, letting it idle. It's not overheating. The coolant reservoir is right where it should be. All the hoses, if I shoot them with a heat gun, they're around 60 something, which is good. I had to heat this with a heat gun as well as have the machine running to get this switch to close. And roughly it's closing at about 140 to 150 degrees Celsius, which I think is way too late, because the light comes on the dash saying it's overheating before this fan switch closes and turns the fan on, which is not right. It should be cycling on and off before the light on the dash comes on and tells you that the machine's overheating as a rider, right? So I got a sneaky feeling that it wasn't the radiator cap, all that stuff was fine, I bet. It was just getting too hot and it was pushing the fluid into the overflow. It was doing what it was supposed to do. I just didn't think that this would be the culprit. Yeah, I was wrong. So far, I'm gonna get a new one of these replaced and install it, and then we're going to see if that completely fixes the problem. I'll hook it back up so that it's going to operate and turn on and off like it should to cycle it, instead of having the fan on 100% of the time. So I will get this on order, and I'll check back with you once we get it installed. Hey, welcome back to Maintenance with Mike. So it's been about a week since we realized that it's possibly the radiator, I believe it's a wax switch that's turning the fan on and off, that's turning on really late. So we ordered that part from Kawasaki directly. I have the part here. It is part number 27010-1202 for a total of $85. So we are going to take out that switch out of the rad today. Try to catch all the antifreeze. It's all brand new that's in there, and install this new switch. This new switch actually has an O-ring on the throat of it where it threads into the rad, so we'll just make sure that that base looks good, and we shouldn't need any sealant on these threads at all then with the O-ring, and we'll just check for leaks and stuff. So I'm gonna get you set up here, and we're gonna take out the old switch for the radiator, which is the switch that actually turns the fan on and off, which was what I believe is it's turning on way too late. So fingers crossed. We hope this is it, my friend. So anyway, let me put you on the tripod here, and we'll get started. So you can see here's the switch right here that we need to get off. So I'm gonna try to crack that a little bit loose here and capture all of the antifreeze in this container here as best we can. Hopefully it'll just drip out a bit at first. Well, oh nice. I was worried that wasn't going to come out very nicely, but it did come out very nicely. Okay, let's see if we can capture all this fluid now. Just let it trickle out down to this level here. I'm hoping. I don't know, I think it's going to maybe come shooting out, which is not optimal. But we'll see here. Okay, we can capture it. Good. It's just going to drain down to this height and then stop. So it's not too much. It's only about a cup by the looks of it. Definitely want to clean off anything around those threads. That's the old one. Let's put the new one in right away here, see if we can get this to stop dripping slowly. So that wasn't overly too tight, so I'm comfortable with that. We'll be able to secure this and not have leaks just by snugging it up the way it was. A couple little floaties in here we want out. We want to pour those in there. And we'll have to top it up again. Now we don't want to go too crazy with this because there is just an O-ring on there, right? I think that's going to do it. I think that's as tight as I want to try. And here's our little jumper that we had. Here's the two wires. Yeah, there's definitely some corrosion on this thing here. Some gungies. Well, we'll see if that's what it was in a second, won't we? So I'm going to put a little bit of this Permatex dielectric grease just on these little tabs here, just so that we get some good electrical connection and there's no corrosion that's going to happen here on these little posts before we snap the wires on. So dielectric grease is a grease that basically encompasses the fitting or the connector and keeps it from air getting to it. but it still conducts electricity. So it's very handy for stuff like this, where you just have a connector that snaps on and is sort of open to the elements, but you want to make sure that it's not getting water and stuff in it, right? So this sort of seals it up, if you will. So we'll put this rubber boot back on here. So that's what we want there. The wires are now connected. The boot's back on. Now we just need to put more antifreeze back in. And probably top it up a little bit. So let's just pour this ever so slowly. Okay, so that's what we took out. So let's just top it up now, because we did spill a little bit here. We'll start it up and we'll make sure there's no leaks around that new fitting that we put in the radiator. Also, it didn't take much to fill it. Let's just squeeze all these hoses and make sure we don't have any air bubbles. Doesn't seem to be. The hoses seem to be full, so that's good. A couple air bubbles in this one. This one. No, there's lots of fluid in there. Okay, let's put this cap back on then. So this is just a recap here. This is a new cap. The thermostat is still out. I haven't put the new thermostat in yet. This is just, I want to test this first before I take this apart. So if this works, we've installed a new radiator cap, which was not the issue, and we'll install a new thermostat, which was not the issue, but those are the two easiest and first things I would check. I'm hoping that this is it. I'm hoping that that switch that's turning on too late is causing it to just get a little bit too hot and overheat. So let's start it up. Okay, fingers crossed. We'll maybe pull this cap back a little, this boot a bit here, just to make sure there's no leaking on the radiator. Seems like it's a pretty good seal, so a little bit of choke and the go button. So in a second here, hopefully you're going to hear the fan turn on. I've got no overheating lights on the dash now again, so that's good. Now we'll see if the fan's like, I've heard it turn off a few times, on and off a few times, which is excellent news. This is not leaking, so we should see those are staying on there good now. The reservoir is right halfway between low and high, which is exactly what we want. If we let it sit for a few seconds here, we should hear the fan turn on. Because it's pretty warm right now. There. Hopefully you heard that. Cycle, and then it should stop here in a second. That's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing now. reservoir is filled about halfway between low and full. It's really hard to see, but the engine's hot now. It's up to temperature. We've got no overheat warning lights on the dash now, and this isn't leaking. These connectors are on good and tight now, so I think it's safe to say we can snap this back on. This little boot, just to keep mud and stuff off of it. And I think that's a win for Maintenance with Mike. Let's see that come back on once more. Lights on the dash. Oh, you don't know how good that makes me feel. So problem solved. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Like I said, we tried the new rad cap because to me it seemed like that was the easiest thing to replace and made the most sense to me, that it was just getting too hot and it was the spring in the rad cap was weak and was just allowing it to push by into the overflow. That wasn't the issue. The thermostat's been removed, so we know that's not the issue, that the thermostat's sticking closed. It was the fan switch in the radiator, and I believe those are a wax switch. So when the wax turns to a liquid, it conducts and lets the fan blow, and then it solidifies when it cools and shuts it off again. So I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Thanks for watching another episode of Maintenance with Mike. If you like these videos, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Maybe share them with a family member or friend. And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.